This is Sawyer Robertson, and you're listening to the Bearcast on SicEm365.com.
Welcome into the Bearcast on SicEm365.com. I'm your host, Grayson Grundhoefer, and today I'm here with Colt Barber as we recap Baylor's 42-7 win over Samford to conclude the non-conference. I know we got a lot to talk about in this one, Colt. I know there's a lot of differing opinions, a lot of kind of noise, a lot of stuff that's for real, a lot of stuff that we just kind of need to, I think, try to clear up and parse through after this game that was a very weird game and a game that I think many fans, man, just the reactions were super negative. And I get it, because at times during that game, I mean, it was just so frustrating to watch them kind of running into a wall, running into themselves for the most part in a lot of ways. So yeah, a very interesting game, and one that I didn't think we would have to talk too much about, but it turns out we kind of do.
Yeah, I mean, when you're predicting 55-0, and like what I did, and all the scores across our staff, when it ends up being 42-7, and Baylor scores 7 second half points, you have a lot to discuss in a negative light. So, my sitting there watching the game, which I have all three kids. Keep that in mind. All three kids with me at this game, because it's an 11 a.m. game. No stress. I'm not yelling at anybody. Wife's like, okay, they can all go. And so I'm watching this game passively, and Baylor gets up 14-0, and I mean, and truthfully, exactly like you expected them to start. Like it's good series defensively. Block a punt, score really quick, get the ball back, score again really quick. It's 14-0, and then it kind of hit that lull, and Samford goes down, makes it 14-7, but then Baylor turns it on, and it's 35-7 at half, and you're like, all right, this game's pretty easily under control. Sawyer will probably get one series in the beginning of the second half, and then he plays the entire third quarter, don't score, and it's just like it almost felt like they were forcing another score for Sawyer's sake, and for the first team offense. And then it got to be, well, now we're going deep into the third quarter, and we have to get this. And so it was just a really weird vibe for that entire thing. And mainly because it came back to the offensive side of the ball, where we haven't seen that in so long, where it just struggled. And I look back in some of the stats, and they weren't taking a ton of deep shots, which I felt that in the game. Like they weren't forcing the issue. Samford wasn't going to really give it up. And I think that probably hurt them a little bit. But in general, it just felt like we got up 14-0, relax. Get up 35-7 and relax. And then it became an ugly game. And I think everyone probably feels a little bit different when it's 35-7 if they just make a change at quarterback and, freshen it up a little bit. And we don't leave that game feeling any differently. The defense plays well. You see a new quarterback longer than, the end of the fourth quarter. But they didn't do that route. And now everybody has a sour taste in their mouth.
Yeah, completely. And I mean, there's a lot of reasons I think to have negative reactions to this game. I think you mentioned it, the quick start, then it kind of, fuming out, Samford gaining a lot of momentum there, and then Baylor gaining a ton of momentum going into the half. And it's just like, man, this game's over. It turned the corner. Baylor really started to put it on them, and then it just never completed itself in the third quarter at all. I mean, it was just and I think you mentioned, the final score being, if it was 35-7 and the backups come in, it's fine, because the backups, okay, they're not moving the ball. But I mean, this was Baylor starters, and by and large, a lot of Samford's backups. I mean, it was a disaster for a lot of reasons. I mean, Samford was just kind of like, all right, we're done. We're not going to get hurt in the rest of this game. And so it's like, man, you're playing against Samford's backups and you're not scoring with your starting offense. I don't know. That was rather interesting, and something that I definitely took note of. I think the other part of this, and there's a lot to this, and there's been a lot of discussion on this, and I'm not exactly sure where I lie on it. It was weird because I thought going into this game, Baylor was going to make a conscientious effort to run the football. And instead, they come out and they're throwing the football over the place. And Sawyer Robertson is, chucking it around. And, you look at the box score and you're watching the game and you're like, man, Bryson Washington's averaging 11, 12 yards per carry. and you're throwing the ball on first down, and you're like, it just didn't make a lot of sense to me. Now, as the game progressed, Samford's defensive line, kind of held up against Baylor's offensive line, which is something we're definitely going to have to talk about. But I just thought in general, man, I don't know if they were trying to put up numbers for Sawyer, if they were trying to work something in. They ran a bunch of screens, if they were trying to do some vanilla stuff in the run game and the pass game, trying not to show a lot, but it just did not look good. It looked really clunky. It looked like they were forcing the issue an awful lot. And that was kind of the biggest thing I saw from the offense. And you kind of mentioned that. It's just like, man, they were forcing the issue. It was like they were trying to fit, this key, this, circular key into a square peg. I mean, it's just not going to work. And that's what they were trying to do. And it just kept happening. And it was shocking to me to see them perform at that level, because they haven't done it all year. And this was by far the worst defense they've played all season. Real quick, Sawyer Robertson has something to remind you about.
Want the latest information about your favorite team? Try out Sigum 365 premium content the next 3 months for just $5 by clicking the link below.
And now back to the Bearcast.
Yeah. And truly, I mean, that's where I am. It was the worst defense they played all season. This is not characteristic of this particular offense, dating back to last year, at the end of last year. So what we've seen at the beginning of this year. And you're right. They started off the game 4 first quarter possessions, went touchdown, punt, interception. And on none of those drives did they run on the very first play of the drive. Now, I've only watched about, I think, through the first 2 touchdowns, and Samford admittedly came out and played 7 and 8 man boxes. They were literally one-on-one on the perimeter with Baylor for a lot of that time. Now, you're in the red zone. Obviously, that block punt, they are in the red zone. So it's probably just a numbers game for a lot of that. But at some point, and they did this even with Bryson, they just ran against heavy boxes and he broke runs. And so that's kind of like the trade-off is you want Sawyer to make the correct reads and say, okay, let's get us out. We're in a run, but they're showing heavy numbers. Let's get out of this and throw the football. But then it's like we also just want to impose our will against this team. And I think that's what they didn't do. And so I understand that you want to run the offense and you want to get Sawyer his numbers, but I think that comes on the heels of, let's just say, okay, we're going to run the ball first and second down, and you're probably going to have decent looks on third downs. And so, like, I'm not here to second guess what Spav did and what the intentions of this game were, but I don't think they had a good game plan for whatever reason. It didn't seem like they scouted this game very well, just from a standpoint of, like, the deep shots aren't going to be there. So if you're going out and trying to throw deep on first, Samford completely just dropped into coverage at a lot of times. And if you look out throughout the game with Sawyer's numbers, he completed or attempted 5% of his passes 20 yards further downfield. The first 2 games was like 18 and 19% against Auburn and SMU downfield shots. And so, like, they weren't doing that. It was just a weird game. Like, the offense wasn't what they have done dating back to last year. They didn't try to just run the football and power their way through the Samford defense, which they should have been able to do. It just seemed off. Like, there was no rhyme or reason for anything they did. It's almost kind of like, screw it. Let's just go out there and play football. Like, they didn't game plan, or it seemed like there just wasn't much of a tune to what their focus was for this game. Because when they wanted to run the football, they did. When Sawyer wasn't throwing interceptions, they were throwing the ball decently well. There were 6 drops in this game, which was just not abnormal because you look at the drops and where they were. Ashton did have 2. Kelsey Johnson had 2. And then there was 2 more on the rest of the team. And they had a combined 4 in the first 2 games. So just overall, just weird vibes from the offense. You hope that that's just a one-off and it doesn't linger into the Arizona State game.
You mentioned those 6 drops, and I think all 6 of those were with Sawyer as well, because I think both of Kelsey Johnson's were thrown by Sawyer.
And one of those could have been an interception that hit the ground.
Almost was. Yeah, they almost. I think they called it on the field an interception, then reviewed it. So, yeah, I mean, that was really weird to see the receivers playing like that. I felt it was interesting because, Dave Aranda talked about the offensive line quite a bit after the game and mentioned the pass protection not being up to the standard either, which I didn't really catch in this game. I didn't catch a ton of
Yeah.
them being bad in pass protection, but I do think it was more of how much movement were they creating to collapse the pocket and not make the pocket completely clean. I don't think it was necessarily them getting, QB hurries or pressures, but more just they shouldn't be moving you, 3 yards back into the quarterback's face, like things like that. So I found that to be an interesting nugget by Dave Aranda. And when I went back and watched more of the game, it made more sense to me why he called out that group. Now, in the run game, I do have an issue here. They are having a problem running the football. And we can talk about loaded boxes. We can talk about, the numbers. But at the end of the day, there are teams around the country that face loaded boxes all the time and still run the ball super effectively. And teams that don't throw the ball well, and everyone knows they're running the football and they still run it right at you. So, yes, I can understand it. You want to change the look and you don't want to run against a loaded box. But on the other hand, it's like, man, you got to be able to move some people at the end of the day. And Baylor's offense line is not moving people at a high enough rate. They're just not. They're not winning physically at all against anyone they've played. I did not feel like they exerted their will on Samford at all in this game. I know it comes out to 223 yards, but this is an FCS team. 223 yards is like you just made a layup. Like it's not anything really all that special. It's just not. And so I find that to be perplexing and probably my biggest worry about the offense going forward is this offensive line. I do think there's chances that in a specific amount of these games that they play in the Big 12, where if they don't turn this around, they're going to be a real problem for Baylor's offense. And it's going to allow defenses to actually slow down Baylor more than I think people would expect.
Yeah. I mean, I understand it. But I think this goes back to a game where you had 44 pass attempts when you shouldn't have had 44 pass attempts. And I'm not trying to say it's all about the pass game or game plan, but if Baylor wanted to run for 400 yards in this game, I think they could have. Both of Bryson's long runs in the first half were against 7 and 8 man boxes. So, they were able to do it when they did it. I just don't think the commitment was there. I mean, you had 43 rushes, you ran 87 plays, but you shouldn't have thrown the football. You shouldn't have had to throw the football 44 times in this game. And regardless, I think it goes back to figuring out how to get Sawyer passes, touchdowns. He had 3 touchdowns, but he had 2 interceptions because he was just not good. 41.2 QBR. And I mean, obviously 6 drops are bad. Like you can't have those, but 5.7 yards per attempt is not good. And a lot of that comes back to drops as well and interceptions. When you throw 2 interceptions and have 6 drops, your per attempt number is really bad. The 223, I don't know. I haven't watched the full game back yet, and I will watch the entirety of it. I think from a backup running back standpoint that I was really excited to see Cade Knighton in this game. And I felt like too often he had 10 carries, career high, he had a rushing touchdown. I felt like and this is probably being spoiled with Dawson Pendergrass and Bryson, their ability to hit the line of scrimmage hard. He just didn't do that in this game. And I think that he has that ability, but I felt like everything tried to bounce to the perimeter of the play. And so he ends up with a 3.4 yards per carry average, when if he just hits the hole, he might get additional 3 yards. So I think from the running game perspective, I'm slightly concerned about that. Where do you have a guy that's just strictly downhill in your backup running back position? And I think they'll coach him in that area, but this was a game for him to show that, to hit the hole. And if you're going to cut, make sure you're downfield before you make a cut. Get your yards, just like we've seen Dawson do, just like we've seen Bryson do. Just show that ability to get through the line of scrimmage. Because when your number 2 guy against Samford is averaging 3.4 yards per carry, and a lot of those carries are him initially cutting to the outside, I don't think that's good. And I know they're going to try to run him off tackle. They're going to do a little bit differently than they do with Bryson because of his speed and his elusiveness. But he has to be decisive as a runner. He has to get there and go. And fortunately, Bryson's, he was able to carry the run game in this particular game. I thought Michael Turner looked good late. But I just hope Baylor's depth there isn't a You get in a game against Arizona State where you need your number 2 back to really push the line of scrimmage and go and then ultimately help the passing game. I hope Caden can do that because Bryson's not going to be able to sustain, getting 30 carries in a lot of these games throughout Big 12 play. And that worries me in the same vein that you're talking about the run game. I think that second wave of ability to tack them with the second running back is my biggest concern for this offense right now.
That's interesting. I really am not all that concerned about it. I think that they're different runners, Caden and Dawson, for sure. And I think in some ways you miss Dawson, and I think we saw that in the early part of the year. I think it's also fair to mention, Caden's a true freshman, so it's also like, man, he hasn't played a lot. And so it's still kind of understanding those type of things. So I do think they've missed Dawson in some ways to start the year, his pass blocking as well. I think that was to be expected. But I do think as the year progresses, there are some things that Caden can do that I do think are different
absolutely
than the other guys. And so I think that's the one thing to keep in mind here. I do agree with you, though, on a couple of things. I felt like he actually hit the hole pretty hard. His problem was he's not finishing runs very well. I don't even think it's the initial surge. I think it's more so like, man, instead of doing a spin move and running backwards and losing 4 yards, it's like, put your head down. That's a 7-yard difference probably, if not more. And then, there were a couple other runs as well where it's like, hey man, like, if you bounce it, maybe it's a touchdown, but more times than not, it's going to be a negative yard loss. Like you're going to lose a yard instead of just getting 2 more yards. And at the end of the day, that keeps your offense moving. He did have a goal line touchdown. He did have a 4th and 1 conversion. So he had a couple of those nice physical, finish type plays. But I do agree, like, there are some things that he's going to have to learn and improve upon because they really need him. They really do. Because I like Michael Turner and I like Joseph Dodds. I think that it's pretty clear, though, based on how they've given out the carries, that maybe those guys aren't quite there yet. I think they're trying to get them there, and maybe it progresses by the end of the year. And it was nice to see some, Michael Turner get some run against the backups, and that was nice to see. And you can see that he has talent, but I'm just curious how this progresses. I'm honestly not too worried about that part of it. I think that if you lose another running back, then you're going to have some serious problems. But I think for now, I'm more worried about the fact that I just don't think this offensive line is moving people to the level that they need to. And we saw this last year, even when they had Dawson, they struggled against good teams to run the football.
Yeah.
And that has carried over into this year. And now we're seeing it against bad teams. Because I full-heartedly believe that this team last year probably runs for like 300 yards in this game, the team that we saw at the end of the year. And so there are some concerns to that. I understand what you're saying. Oh, they didn't make a commitment to running the football, but also they had multiple 1 yard, 0 yard, negative 1 yard gains against Samford. Well, and that's pretty unacceptable.
Yeah, no, it is. And I think that's where I go back, and I haven't looked at the entire game. I know SMU and Auburn did it where it's just like, hey, we're going to match up with you as best as we can on the perimeter and kind of eat that, eat that whatever happens in the pass game happens. And it burned both of them. Obviously, Auburn got the win. Against Samford, I don't care what the numbers are in the box. You have to be able to run the football. You have to commit to doing it. And I think I truly believe without watching, I've watched about a half of a quarter. I watched a half of the first quarter. You saw Bryson's 2 long runs. I think that when they wanted to take advantage of it, they did. I don't know how much of this game was about, hey, we've really sucked at this. Let's try to hammer this inside zone home. Like, let's figure out what we're working on here to try to get better at. I don't know that. I'm not the coach. I haven't watched the full film. So I think I hesitate to say, man, Samford just, ate their lunch on the offensive line. And I think truly for this entire game, that's my biggest, I want to discuss this the most, is the running game and what that looked like. Because I'm not worried about Sawyer, but the running game has to get going. And I think going back to Caden, and then I'll finish with a little bit more on the entirety of it. But Caden's, you explained what I was trying to explain better. When Caden gets through the line of scrimmage, finish the run. Like, be okay with 7. Like, be okay with 7. Now, I think there's some of that. He has that ability. I think as he is the speed of the game kind of it slows down for him, those cuts become pick your spots, and then you get the explosive play. I mean, I remember we were talking about Lake Seastrong. It's funny that he did that game to get the crowd going at the beginning of the game. But Lake would do that early. And once he decided I'm a one-cut runner, and then I'll make my moves down the field, he became so much better. And I think Caden's that same deal. Like, let me get upfield, take seven, and he can. And then I'm going to get my 50 because he has that speed. And I think that helps elevate Baylor's overall rushing game. But I'm going to go back and I'm going to watch the however many 44 rushes and see what exactly the issue was. Because at this point, I haven't done it. I just felt like when they were willing to run the football and not throw it 44 times or whatever they did through the game, they ran it okay. And they just have to say, what is our strength and what are we going to lean on? And Sawyer also has to run the football. I mean, my wife was sitting beside me and she's watching the game. She's like, why didn't he run more? Like, he has lanes, and he did once and he pulled it and got 16 yards, but he does it so often right now that he just is not opening up the run game from that area. And maybe they're waiting on their moment to do it. And that's a whole nother discussion of the run game that can really help it if he begins doing that. Because I truly believe that his ability to run the football last year, once he showed that, helped the run game as much as it improved throughout the year. I think that helped it as much as anything, because his ability just to step around the end and take it for a while was a big part of it.
Dude, he does not look right. I don't know what, I mean, like, we haven't, there's nothing that's been said that makes me think that, but he does not run like he did a year ago. Like, the way it looks does not look like how it looked last year. Like, he looked like a natural runner when he was in full speed mode. You know what I mean? He's not much of a cutter. He's not much of a agility guy.
Well, I think that's the problem. He
But
doesn't.
his straight line speed is normally really good, and
he hasn't put him in that situation. Like, have they put him in that situation at all this year?
I mean, the run that you're talking about, I mean, he even looked hobbled, like, on that.
But he was also, but even on that play, he's looking downfield. He has not been decisive as a runner, and I think that's coached to an extent. But it's also, hey, it's 4th and 1, and where you picking your spot to run this QB power? Like, what are we waiting on with this? And I think they are to an extent, and I didn't mean to cut you off. I just want to see it, and then let me make the determination of how healthy he is, because I don't think we've just seen them say, hey, Sawyer, go run.
But I think there could be a reason behind that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's kind of what I'm saying, a little bit on that. We don't know. It just has been weird because this is not, I mean, even against Auburn, like, you're not running any quarterback designs, and those were some of the best plays that they ran early last year. Like, if you remember the early stretch, like when they really started getting going kind of in the middle there before he got hurt, he was really doing some damage with his legs. So yeah, that is something to monitor. If that changes, that could really be something that helps them. And it's something that I think they're going to need in a big way in some of these matchups. And I just think this is an area where, you're watching the Baylor offensive line, and it's almost like you feel like he should pull it so many times. Like, you feel like there's a hole there on the option to the outside. Strictly a handoff is what it looks like almost every time. And so, that's definitely something to monitor that could change some things in the run game, even if the offensive line is struggling.
Yeah. And I don't want to, build on that too much. I just, once that's evident, if he truly can't run, then we won't see it this season. If there's something going on with that and they're just trying to protect him, and maybe that's what it is at this juncture, like, we got to get into conference play. Like, our ultimate goal is winning a Big 12 championship. And maybe that's what this is about. And maybe we see it against Arizona State, because I think that it does help in game prep that he's put it on film before. So that Arizona State's looking at this game and say he has the ability to do that. But until they get popped with it, or any team gets popped with it this year, it's an afterthought. And once he does it one time this year, though, I think it helps a lot. He just hasn't shown it at all, and for whatever reason, we don't know. And because they're not answering that question when we ask it, and we've asked it plenty of times.
Yeah, it's been asked for sure. So, Colt, let's talk a little bit about the defense here next. Yeah. Man, I felt like this was one of those games where, coming into the game, I would have told you this game 100% matters so much more for the defense than it does the offense. And I know we come away from this spending, 25 minutes talking about the offense just because it was such a poor showing.
Yeah.
But in general, I think most everyone's concerns are more so on the defensive side. So you wanted to see them come out and have a really dominant performance. And for the most part, it was. But there was a drive in this game that was really ugly. And it was one of those red flag type drives with a bunch of missed tackles, a couple explosive plays, a 10-play, 80-yard drive that was capped by the ugliest touchdown pass I have ever seen in my entire life. I cannot believe that they allowed that pass to go for a touchdown. So watching the game, that drive was just like, oh man, this defense is really bad. And I think it's a natural way to think because Samford hadn't done anything all year. Oh yeah, they haven't done anything against West Georgia or the Citadel, two teams that have far less talent than Baylor does. And you give up this long drive, they score a touchdown. Again, a team gets in the red zone and literally scores on first down. So just nothing to get a stop in the red zone at all, because that's what I was hoping for, right? If you're going to give up these long drives, you're going to get red zone stops. You're going to find a way to bow up and keep them out of the end zone. They didn't do that. They give up a score. It was really worrisome. And then, of course, they turn around the rest of the game. But just that drive in particular, because it was first string on first string, did that send some alarms in your head a little bit?
Well, I mean, I don't think more than what we've seen this year. I don't know. I mean, I expected and hoped that Baylor shutted him out, was going to come out and shut him out, because I think Baylor's overall speed, team ability defensively should have done that. That one drive, I mean, they put up 195 yards, 80 of that came in that drive, like you just mentioned. 3.36 yards per play for the entire game. I mean, I don't know how many, you said 10 plays. Is that 10 plays, 80 yards?
10 play, 80.
So you're talking about 8 yards per play on that particular drive. And it's tough because I full on Baylor should have shut them out. Like that should have been the reality for this game. And I don't, it's so tough. Like, I don't know. Like, does it make me more concerned about this defense for the long term? No, I'm more worried about them getting healthy on the defensive line. Like, they've got to get healthy there to have some size when you're playing a 1-4 for the majority of that particular game, or whatever they're running peso quite a bit. I don't think it increases my worried level. That answers your question. Like, I think it is what it is at this point. And Samford scoring 7 points or scoring 0 points, it's all the same to me at this juncture. Like, we know. I think there's the positive of, like, you get interceptions, you get turnovers, you block a punt, you play with energy. They didn't have the best tackling game. I think the guys that you needed, like Trayvon, the linebacker, my mind just went completely. Travion Barnes. Thought he had a better game considering what he's been dealing with the first couple games. Phoenix Jackson left with a little injury at one point there. I like what they're building around. I just don't know what this game told me defensively. Like, I mean, yeah, the numbers look much better. You almost give up 200 total yards of offense. I don't know if that's good or bad. It was just a weird game in general, and I think that stems to the defense as well. Like, Micah Gifford getting an interception was really cool. Like, he played a pretty good game considering we haven't seen him all season. LeVar Thornton continues to make plays. He's in good position. So I think there's things to build on, but I don't think that game answers any questions for me either way. And no positives, no negatives for the most part. You don't want to give them 7 points to Samford, but I think they, in general, did what they were supposed to do to that offense.
Okay, so it more so just solidifies the fact that
there's concerns.
This is a good defense. Yeah.
I mean, I think there's potential there to become better if you clean up tackling, you clean up some things. But I think we're going to know, has this defense got, because I thought they took a step. I truly believe they took a step forward from playing Auburn and then playing SMU. I think there were some positives from that particular game besides the explosive plays. I don't know that we're going to fully know until they face Sam Leavitt in that running offense, because they're going to try to expose a weakness. And Dave Aranda has to show, do I have an answer for that? I'm actually fairly confident in the secondary right now. Like, I think that's probably the biggest takeaway for me is, like, they've actually played decently well outside, notwithstanding 2 explosive plays against SMU. I actually feel somewhat confident. I don't know how much that Arizona State's going to be able to take advantage of this defensive front.
I don't know where I'm at with that, because I do think that if you're playing to protect your secondary like they did against Auburn, then it's kind of hard to judge, are they playing well or are you just protecting them? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Then it's impacting you in the run game, which we saw in that
Mhm.
game. And so that's where my questions are, because in a game like we're going to see against Arizona State, that team can run the football. And
Mhm.
they're going to run the football. It's actually kind of similar a little bit to Auburn in the fact that, they got a really good playmaker at receiver. They don't have as many, but they have one in Jordan Tyson, who is really, really good. And then a very good offensive line, a veteran offensive line, a really good running back, a running quarterback. There's some issues that could be attacked there. I do think it's a great opportunity for Baylor to prove that this performance was them kind of, taking another step. I don't know if I necessarily see it that way. I see it more as you gave up the long touchdown run, so you didn't have a dominant day. You didn't have this, unbelievable day.
Well, I
But
don't think
I
anybody
also
expects that. Yeah.
Right, but I also recognize how well they played after that, and how well they played, to turn the game. And that play by DJ Coleman right after Sawyer's interception was a huge one, and it was the one that, in my eyes, turned the game completely for the defense, and really gave them a lot of confidence. On the forced fumble that Kylan Reed grabbed. I just felt like that was a key play for them to turn that corner, and they played really well after that. But in general, I'm with you. I think that there are too many question marks and too many things we've seen already that just make you think, okay, this is probably going to be a season-long problem, and there's probably going to be teams in the Big 12 that are going to score a lot of points on Baylor. And so now it's just a matter of, can you take steps forward to where when you play the teams that aren't that good offensively, can you slow those teams down, right? Can you make sure that those games are a little bit more, low scoring for the opponent? Because I think against the good teams, it's kind of, I don't know if it's completely obvious, but I do think it's becoming more and more obvious that most good offenses are probably going to score like 30 points at least on Baylor.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not ready to say that for the entirety of the season at this juncture. I think the key is if and when, I don't know if it's going to happen, Jackie Marshall's playing his full amount of snaps. DK Kalu is playing his snaps. Like, we haven't seen it yet. I don't know what to expect from the defensive line at this juncture. Like, if and when they're ever going to be healthy, I don't know. Because unfortunately, we haven't seen that at all this season. 8 plays for Jackie against Auburn. Now DK's hurt after the SMU game. Like, there's just that for that group to be as good as it can be, it has to be playing together, for one. I think there's enough pieces behind that I think you see. You mentioned DJ Coleman. It seems like he's showing up more and more right now. I think LeVar's showing up in spots. I think there's that potential. I think Devin Bobby's played well enough. We know what Keaton can do. I feel like Matthew Fobbs-White and Amari Winston have shown that. So it's like there's so many of these individual pieces right now. And let me build on that really quick. Matthew Fobbs-White, I mean, freaking Amari Winston's playing with his hand in the ground right now, and he shouldn't. That's not what he was recruited for. I want to see those guys play with this defensive unit as it should be and where they're supposed to be playing before I can really make full judgments. Because I think if you have guys like DJ Coleman grow up, and you have Devin and Jacob Redding is another one. Let's see these pieces come together, and maybe in the back half of the season, you kind of see the fruits of all of this. Right now, I don't know what to expect long term. I think there's still some of that potential that we're riding off too quickly, mainly because the potential emergence of some guys on the back end, answering questions at safety, at star, LeVar Thornton being a legit number 2 to Tevin Williams at cornerback. Like, if all of that happens to come together and there's able to be on the field together, I think this potential is to be an average or above average defense is there. That's not a high bar. I'm not saying this team's going to be great defensively. I just think it's probably has the potential to be better than we are expecting it to be right now. There's just a lot of moving pieces, and I don't know if it will ever come together. And that's the scary part for the entirety of the season.
It really is. And I mean, sure, there's some encouraging play. It's hard for you to, again, in a game like this, like, I'm not going to sit here and say, wow, this was great or anything like that. So I do think that there is still a lot of red flags, still a lot of caution, still a lot of, can this get fixed? Still a lot of, okay, you need Jacob Redding to emerge. And then you're seeing he's still splitting time with Tyler Turner, who played better than him in this game. And so it's like, okay, they're flip-flopping. Kendrick Simpkins is still coming in for DJ Coleman. So there's still some flip-flopping going on there. Where's Carl Williams? What's going to happen with him? You feel good about your corner? Sure. I think we felt good about them coming into the season. And I still think there's some promise there from that group. It was nice to see Caden Jenkins come back and play in this game and, play pretty well. I still have some faith there. The linebacker group is still very worrisome. I know Dave Randa mentioned Kylan Reed after this game, and he played better. I still have concerns, and this week he's going to get tested, and so will Travion Barnes against Arizona State. But you feel good about Keaton, and then you're right. If they can get healthy up front, maybe we just haven't seen it yet. Maybe.
I think possible. For me, it's an entirely, can this defense be good enough to match what the offense has the capability of doing? And I don't want to mistake what I'm saying for this defense can be very good this year. I don't have that belief. I think it's what can this defense do to maximize itself? And that's what I have to hold out. I think that's what you have to hold out hope for the long term of the season. Is how good can this defense be? Maybe it's just average, but they need to figure out how to get there.
So, Colt, I went through and looked at the rest of the schedule this year, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. So I see only 3 really, really good offenses left on the schedule. That's Arizona State, TCU, and Utah. Is there another team that you would throw into that as being a really good offense? Because I see the rest of the offenses as being, mediocre.
Name them again. Which ones did you say?
Arizona State, Utah, and TCU.
I mean, I'm not personally ready to throw Arizona State in there yet. I mean, we might find out a ton about them this year. They've been. We know what they're capable of doing. Utah. I mean, heck, UCLA just fired their head coach. I mean, I don't know what we really know about their overall. I think they have the ability to take advantage of Baylor because their run game. TCU, I think we know what it is. They didn't look great running the football against Abilene Christian stats-wise. But outside of those 3, I think I agree with you on Brendan Sorsby. With the game being at Cincinnati scares me a little bit. I don't know. We'll see what transpires between now and then. But outside of that, no. There's nothing on there. Arizona is going to be a challenge because you're on the road. They just got a big home win against Kansas State, which doesn't say a lot right now. And then, Kansas State, Avery Johnson just fell off a cliff, man, his performances. But, yeah, I think the 3 teams you mentioned, Arizona State, Utah, and TCU are the 3 most visible challenges right now. And I think from what I've seen from Arizona State, it's more about a mismatch for Baylor. Arizona State, Utah, both running the football gives you the most pause in the matchup. I don't think they're great offenses by any means. I think it's just that could be a really tough matchup, especially with Arizona State. You're looking at what's Baylor going to have on the defensive line. What are you going to match up? Are you playing Peso? Are you playing 1-4 in this game? But I haven't seen. I watched that game against Texas State for them, and I haven't seen anything that just makes me scared to death. I just think it's a bad matchup for Baylor, unfortunately. But I don't think it's a game that Baylor can't slow them down either.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see on that. I do think their rushing attack is interesting. And yeah, we can say they're not an elite offense, but it's the same thing with Utah. They both have really good offensive lines, and that can really propel you to doing a lot of things. And they really, they beat up on Texas State. Pretty bad. And I think they only covered by a little bit, but they beat up on them. They were up the whole game. It really was not all that competitive. So we'll see. We'll talk more about them in our preview. I did want to get to this, Colt, as well, because as we know, this was the game where it's all right, get to see a bunch of young guys, right? And so I just wanted to go through a couple of these quick highlights, and we can talk about them as we go. Let's just talk about them as we go. So the first one was Nate Bennett. He comes in as the second string quarterback. He gets all the reps as the backup. Dave Randa said after the game that he is not committed to a backup. He just played Nate Bennett because he'd been with the Baylor program for longer. That was that's what he said. And so we'll see kind of how that plays out. But I thought Nate did pretty well. And it was kind of some of the things that we've talked about with him is that He's got command of the offense. He understands where he needs to go with the football, and he's a very accurate passer. Now, he's not very big. He took a huge hit in this game off a missed block right up the hole, got smoked, and it led to an incompletion, but he actually got the ball there. It was almost another completion. He had a really nice throw, I felt like, to Taz that could have been caught as well. But, yeah, Nate Bennett, just quick thoughts on him and what you saw in this one.
Yeah, I mean, what we've known about him is his arm is, and I don't want to say deceptively strong. We just haven't seen it. I mean, no Baylor fan has seen it at all until this game. But you kind of saw the zip that he has on his passes for this particular offense. It's almost like a perfect style of arm. He's kind of that gunslinger mentality. But in what we saw from him, I think that you saw his ability to run that. He's going to get the ball there accurately the majority of the time. He didn't have any carries in this game, but you kind of saw his ability to move in the pocket a little bit. But yeah, I mean, if he's the number 2 for this season, I think it's in spot duty. Like, I think Dave Aranda is being honest. Like, I think it's just like, I'm not going to be committed to anybody. We're going to figure out where these guys need to plug in. But everything that I've heard and seen with my own eyes about Nate being through this point of his career kind of came true in what we saw in his first action. He can throw the football. I mean, like, he's going to be able to throw the football. We don't get to see the vertical shots in this game, but he can throw those as well.
Yeah, I felt like it was encouraging to see it again. I'm not solidified on who the backup is. Like, if Sawyer got hurt, I still think that you'd probably see multiple quarterbacks for different reasons. Yeah. But hopefully that never happens. 3 guys who had their first career catch: Mason Dossett, Taz Williams, and Ja'Cory Watson. So a lot of guys getting their first career reception. Yeah. Anything just want to note on those guys?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully Mason's not too hurt. It didn't look good when he came off the field. I mean, it's cool that they get their reps. I mean, they're 3 guys that I'm really excited about for the future, specifically. But yeah, I mean, nothing too much. I mean, it's good to see because Baylor's going to need those guys, possibly beginning next year, depending on the 5-for-5 rule. They're going to need those guys to step up. And you've heard good things about all 3 of them, but where they were in the game and they're able to get reps, it kind of shows where they are on the depth chart, I would imagine.
I'm really excited about this receiving core going forward when they add Jordan Clay and London Smith as well to the group that they added in the 2025 class. It's going to be a really interesting group. And Ja'Cory Watson had a really good spring and carried that into the fall. And so it was nice to see him catch a couple passes and show kind of a little bit of what he can do in the slot. In this one. Moving to the defensive side, Kamari Morgan got a lot of snaps in this one, played some in the SMU game. So excited to see kind of him grow and continue to play a lot, especially if they're going to continue to run this Peso package. Caleb Burns got an interception in this game. That one's really intriguing to me. I think that he might sneakily find himself on the field more and more. What we've seen from the second linebacker opposite Keaton Thomas has just not been good enough up to this point in the season. So I am just starting to wonder if maybe there's a package or 2 that might include Caleb Burns the rest of the way. I think he's just such an impactful player. And you saw it. I mean, listen, I know that it was a badly thrown football, but for a true freshman to put himself in the right place in a very limited amount of snaps and to come away with a turnover, it does say something about a guy that's already starting to make plays. And then the other guy I need to mention here was Micah Gifford. I know he's not a freshman, but man, I mean, the tackle for loss that he had just continued to be one of those things that we saw a year ago when he was on special teams. It's like, man, this guy just flies to the football. And so that was encouraging. He had the interception. Again, it was a terrible throw, but he made a play. He went up and made a play. And so really encouraged by those guys and just seeing the young guys kind of get on the field and make a few plays.
Yeah. Starting with Gifford, both of his plays kind of showed his athletic ability, his roots playing receiver, special teams, etc. To go chase down and get an open field tackle. He did that a ton on being a gunner on the punt return. But then his interception he basically was playing receiver when he went and caught that ball. It was really impressive. I don't know what other safety on the team makes that specific catch. Like, that's a challenging catch because of the way you have to adjust your body. So he's a guy that you hope they get the 5-for-5 rule because he could have 2 more years at safety and will be massive for him. Caleb Burns, you mentioned special team with Micah. Caleb was praised for his time on special teams and what he's been doing on special teams early in the season. He's been playing some. But yeah, I mean, he was recruited at such a high level. I think trust factor is a big deal with Dave Aranda right now. And so if he's able to be trusted, I imagine he's going to be on the field more often than not. And you know, it's not like he's undersized compared to some of these other. He's 223 pounds for a true freshman. He can fly. So if he's good enough, he's going to play. But in general, I think offensively and defensively, there's some talent that's coming up, and there's some holes there the last couple of years of the young infusion of talent. And I don't say that in a disrespectful way, but Baylor missed out some significant additions because of, frankly, NIL. And now you're seeing the benefits of NIL. You're seeing guys like Morgan and Burns and the offensive Watson and Taz Williams. Like those guys are, you know, then Caden Knighton and Michael Turner. Like there's guys on this roster that are going to be coming through that are very talented. And we've highlighted a few of them.
Yeah. So who do you think was the highest graded offensive player for Baylor?
I already know.
Game, Colt? You already know?
I already know. Well, I
Man.
assume Colton Siraki is like, and that it didn't surprise me, but I was like, over the course of a game, awesome. Like that's 2 games in a row. I mean, I'm pretty sure he graded out as the highest offensive lineman in the last game as well.
Yeah.
And a redshirt freshman. So
it's a conversation. It's a conversation with the way that he's playing as to him getting more snaps. I mean, he is playing really well, and we'll see what's going on with Colton Price and see if he can get back. It is tough. So we'll see kind of how that unfolds, but he has been awesome. He's been everything that we expected and then more. We had heard all offseason how good he's been playing, and getting to see that and thinking, okay, he is the one backup offensive lineman I completely trust. And I think it was for good reason. He's been really, really good. So that was nice to see. So the trick question is, who is the second highest grade offensive lineman in this game?
I mean, are we talking minimum snaps or no?
No, just.
I probably should know this because I've looked at it. I would say Matthew Parker.
Yeah. True freshman.
There you go. I'm
Parker.
shooting from the hip on this one. I mean, the way that you phrased it, I was assuming it was probably a young guy.
He only played 15 snaps, but he had the second highest grade on the offensive line, which I thought was really cool and really notable. It was he was third overall behind Mason Dawson, who was second, who only played two snaps. Two snaps. So good to see that from Matthew Parker, him getting in the game. Colton Thomason and Harrison Clough also came in the game along with Sean Tompkins and Colt Siraki. That was their second unit along the offensive line. So good for those guys to get some reps. They're much needed. I wish they had gotten more reps. I wish their reps had been more like 30 or 35 in this game instead of 15. But it is what it is. They made the most of it and got some of those young guys in. And I agree with you. It's nice to see them kind of getting this infusion of talent. There's some optimism about the future there. There's a lot of guys that I think are really good players on this roster who are just kind of waiting for their opportunity, right? Yeah. And it's kind of building. We got to see a glimpse of it in this game. The reason I bring it up is because for some of these guys, we might not talk about them again this year. And then for other guys, it might just be the start of something. So it'll be really interesting to kind of monitor that going forward.
Yeah. And I think at times you're probably going to need these guys. Caleb Burns might be one that you need. Yeah. Obviously, Matthew Parker's a snap away right now based on the depth chart of playing pretty significant role, depending on what they actually do there. But yeah, I'm excited about the future. Obviously, you have a lot of old guys right now, but there's a lot of young guys that there's something to build there. And I don't think that it's necessarily been there, and that optimism hasn't been there as much because they had to bring in so much talent from the portal. And now you're having a younger couple of classes that have a lot of promise.
Definitely. So that will do it for today's episode. Colt and I will be back later this week to talk with the premium mailbag. So if you're a Sikkim 365 premium subscriber, you ask the questions, we'll answer them. We'll go as in-depth as we possibly can. If you're not a premium subscriber, join Sikkim 365 Premium so you can ask questions and get that podcast. Aside from that, Colt and I will also have a preview for Baylor's matchup against Arizona State on Saturday, as well as our best bets in the Big 12 for week number 4. But for today, that is it. Thanks for listening. This has been the Bearcast on Sikkim365.com.
Join Sikkim 365 Premium on a $1 for 1 month trial to read our experts' notes and insights. Know about high school commits, off-season transfers, coaching staff changes, and so much more before the rest. Also, download the Sikkim 365 app on your iPhone today to get instant notifications of breaking news, read up on the latest inside info, easily interact with other Baylor fans on our forums, and get alerts for anything published by your favorite staff members.